morning to everyone. I'm delighted to be with you, even if in virtual shape, and to share with you this important the discussion about your important project, the SoPHIA project. So my name is Erminia Sciacchitano. I currently work at the Italian Ministry for Cultural Heritage in the culture and tourism. And I'm in the cabinet of the minister, but I've been working for 6 years in the European Commission, and I've been working hard on cultural heritage policy developments, and I've been the scientific advisor of the European Year of Cultural Heritage. In my presentation, I will give you an overview and some information about the background and how much this background is related to your project, background in EU policy development on cultural heritage. So some information that will be helpful, I hope, for you on to work on your project. So first slide, I recall the European Year of Cultural Heritage, which happened in 2018, and it was an important moment to, let's say, make the point and really agree on what I can call this European approach to cultural heritage. We can say this approach goes now, it's widely shared beyond Europe, but since now it is enshrined in all EU policy documents and the most important conventions on cultural heritage. Look, for instance, at the European Landscape Conventions, the Faro Convention, the Framework Convention of the Council of Europe on the value of cultural heritage for society, the Council of Europe Strategy 21 for cultural heritage, the Davos Declaration on Baukultur. So we can say that really at European level now we share those principles. The principles you know very well, because these are the foundations of your project, the SoPHIA project. The fact that we should have a integrated and holistic approach to cultural heritage without distinguishing between the tangible, intangible, and digital dimension of cultural heritage. That cultural heritage is a shared resource, and therefore it's passing heritage to the future generation is a shared responsibility. Then now it's much more important to look at peoples and values, so beyond the old approach of old stones, let's say, and old stuffs. And the fact that cultural heritage is a cross-cutting policy area, because it is interrelated with so many different policies. And in the slide, you will see examples, because we can say that practically all policy areas, at least at EU level, but I'm sure also at national level, are interconnected with cultural heritage, from environment to agriculture, maritime, research, tourism, education, and so on. If it is a cross-cutting policy, of course, its implementation, for its implementation, it is fundamental to work in a more cross-disciplinary way, because you need to work in teams which have put together different competencies and knowledges and backgrounds, and also to cooperate better, to allow better cooperation between the different levels of government and administration, which are responsible for diverse sectorial policies. And the engagement of all stakeholders, it's also considered fundamental today. This has an impact on your work, because when we are looking into the approach to the indicators on the impact of cultural heritage in an holistic way, well, indicators on the impact, which impact we are going to look? We are going to look at the impact in terms of heritage preservation, passing it to future generation, heritage values, or we are going to look into the different objectives of the other policy areas. So this is the first questions that I'm putting on the table. And I also want to draw your attention on a scheme, which is, it's now in the slide, it's on the top right, of the so-called upstream approach. Because this is also another turning point. Around 2015, 2016, it became very clear that it's not just important to measure the impact of cultural heritage policies, let's say non-intentional or casual impact. So for sure, and in this report, Cultural Heritage Accounts for Europe, the the consortium which run the project has analyzed more than 200 impact studies. So the impacts are evident. There are figures, there are results, clear results. But it's what we want to do is to tailor our policies in order to produce benefits which are intended benefits, which are directed toward a clear objective. And a clear objective should be an objective that bring added value to the territories concerned. And that's why we now talk about upstream and regenerative development. So culture and cultural heritage are areas of activities of work that, if tailored, if shaped in the correct way, can maximize the benefits in all the pillars of sustainable development. It seems a bit abstract, but it is very clear. It was very clear when we started reflecting beyond the concept of impacts on we started reflecting on the concept of quality. Because in one sense, quality is the result that we want to achieve. So how we can measure impact if we don't decide what is the results, what we want to bring to the territories and to the territories and to the communities of a certain territory. We want to bring benefits in all the areas of sustainable development. This is why our reflection on the quality of interventions of all projects and activities that have an impact or intervene on cultural heritage, we started thinking that, yes, I'm an architect myself, I was trained to deliver quality, and quality was for me just, okay, I need to ensure correct and proper conservation, preservation of cultural heritage. So, and it was a matter of expertise. In the past years, we have dedicated a lot of time to quality as a process. So yes, of course, the tenders, transparency, and the quality, all the ISO reflection on the standards for quality. But now quality is much more, we have a third dimension of quality, which is fundamental, is the quality as a way to produce regenerative development. So the benefit of our intervention on people and communities is essential. And this benefit relies on cooperation and participation. So that's why quality is in the hands of many, many, many actors. So when you think and you reflect on indicators, okay, those indicators, who is responsible for what, is also an important aspect. So in the European Framework for Action on Cultural Heritage, which is the document that in the Commission we produced at the end of the European Year of Cultural Heritage, which was a shared, huge exercise of putting in place all the principles of holistic, integrated approach, evidence-based and multi-stakeholder approach to cultural heritage, we have identified an important stream of actions. And one stream of action, the cluster number 8, is a cluster of action where your project is central. So the first part of the work was to work on quality principles for EU-funded intervention on cultural heritage. This work was done together with ICOMOS. And together, and thanks to the very good cooperation between DG Education and Culture and the colleagues in charge of the DG in charge of research and innovation, and so also in charge of Horizon 2020, together we designed and we shaped a call, which is a call that you won, in order to allow to create a social platform that could continue working and reflecting and sharing on the same principles and concepts that we have explored with a small working group of experts together with ICOMOS. The third important pillar of this work is this peer learning study visit on quality for cultural heritage and participatory governance. It's a parallel project. I'll talk you about this project. So this is one example of, it's very clear on quality. This is an example of EU investments on an important heritage site. Yes, EU gives a lot of funding to cultural heritage sites, and this is before and after. So my question is, what is the spirit of the place? Maybe we should ask to the inhabitants, what do they think about this place? This place, I don't know if I cannot decide if it is a correct, not a correct, or not correct way to intervene on a site, but it's very clear, and we know that all the investments were targeting tourism development. And this can be a problem because you, in one sense, you just address one of the many of all the pillars of sustainable development. So what happens to the community when you only focus on tourism? That's why your approach, your holistic approach is fundamental. So we work together with e-commerce to develop those European quality principles for EU-funded intervention on cultural heritage that I invite you to read, I invite you to explore. And this project was developed having an important approach in mind, that now we need to give guidance to all the stakeholders, because decisions are not just taken by experts. Experts should always be involved in the process, but there are some decisions that are taken by institutions, by other authorities, at a stage where probably heritage experts are not involved, or maybe are decisions that belong to decision more related to the objective of investments for economic or environmental issues. So maybe this is not a stage where the experts are asked to contribute. So that's why this document provides a step-by-step implementation. So explains at all the stages where you should look at some aspect to ensure that its quality and the respect for values and authenticity is ensured. And also looks at different drivers that of course contribute to quality, and let's say education and training, risk assessment and mitigation, and so on, and a good governance of course can help. So it's an important tool that I invite you to look at, with an interesting checklist with selection criteria for projects with a potential impact on cultural heritage, let's say, that sums up all the principles that should be taken into account in order to produce a quality result. This project is well mentioned in a report, recent report of the European Court of Auditors, which is really important in light of your work, which has analyzed several some investments in using ERDF funds in Europe, and drawing some important recommendation. And one of the most important recommendation, let's say, is this: the economic aspect should not be the only aspect, the only objective of investment. So we have 4 recommendations. First of all, the improvement of current strategic framework for culture within the remit of the treaties. So the report points out that, for instance, the European Agenda for Culture is not considered as a basic and important document in different policy areas which invest on culture. They encourage the use of private funds to safeguard Europe's cultural heritage, and this is why it's also important to have a shared framework of indicators that's both the private and the public sector share objectives. To strengthen the financial sustainability of cultural studies sites funded by ERDF, and to take more specific action to preserve heritage sites. So this report points out on the importance to look also at this quality aspect. Recently, the regulation on the European Regional Development Fund and Cohesion Fund, the Commission has recently proposed an amendment to the regulation, and this is also important in light of your work, because your work will immediately be seen as in the framework of the new objective that is going to be created with a focus on culture and tourism in the regulation. This is really important because this has been acknowledged by European Commission that culture and tourism are being heavily impacted by COVID-19. And therefore now we have this new important objective. And of course, immediately the issue of indicators will come out. We cannot just limit ourselves to indicators on the number of visitors of a site. As we said, we need to look at this indicator in the broad spectrum of all indicators with an holistic approach. This is your project. Of course, we don't go into details, but just to remind that your project is one of the 3 pillars of this cluster 8 of the Prima Framework for Action for Cultural Heritage. I just want to also to draw your attention on an important project. Maybe you should be in touch with the consortium leading working on this project, because it's strongly related. It's called Cultural Heritage in Actions, and it is a peer learning program, because we were also thinking of, okay, we have to pay to this quality principle. We are advanced in this with this approach. We will, with the platform will provide further reflection and research and better understanding. But we also need to start implementing those principles and to promote the implementation of the principles. This is why we have set up this project. It's a peer learning scheme, which it's targeting the regional and local authorities. We will create some peer learning visits, 12 peer learning visits, analyzing around 30 case studies, where we have together the 3 approaches to adaptive reuse, participatory governance, and quality. And why put together these 3 things? Because in one sense, adaptive reuse, so we have a site or a building, we want to reuse this building. How we ensure quality in this investment? We cannot ensure quality without participatory governance. So the 3 aspects work hand in hand, because if you want to ensure that the quality of intervention, we really also need to look at the different benefits to the local population and to the communities. And also we need to involve all the different stakeholders to be sure that we agree on the objectives, and also be sure that we reach the different targets, the different objectives of the different policy areas. At least we need to find a balanced approach. Another project I want to highlight for you is open micro business models of family-owned heritage houses. This is interesting for you, especially on your investigation on about indicators and impacts, because there was a very important survey carried on by owners of heritage houses all over Europe, with more than 1,000 questionnaires responded by heritage owners. And thanks to this questionnaire, we are really interesting results in terms of the real impact and description of those impacts. So you see this interesting scheme, which is a bit an evolution of the Cultural Heritage Vacances for Europe approach. And you will see much more detailed information and analysis of all those impact in all these different areas of sustainable development. So really invite you to have a look at this project. Another important project, building on a previous analysis on the economic impact of material cultural heritage in the framework of the ESPON initiative, is now a project called Cultural Heritage as a Source of Societal Well-being in European regions, which is running in parallel to your project. So I really invite you to establish links and approaches, because I see so many synergies among your projects. Just to give you an example of how this approach could be used in the way that we now use to frame our EU calls. One example is the Urban Innovative Actions, also developed in cooperation with the colleagues with the DG Region. And the idea, it is rewarding new solutions at the urban level. So cities get some funding to implement an innovative action, an important innovative action. It's a competitive process which was launched last year, and culture and cultural heritage were included. And of course, the approach that was chosen is, okay, you need to select an innovative action, exactly keeping in mind the principles that we have explained before. So integrated approach, which benefits all the areas of sustainable development, people-centered approach with implemented through participatory approaches. And of course, encouraging the open governance models. Okay, thank you very much.